Let's chat. What do the notes say? Tonight's D&D discussion is about integrating your characters. What do I even mean? What do I want to say here? Integrating characters is about taking players who have dumb ideas for characters.
Every type of player is trash.
And making them work in your wonderful campaign. It's about making sure that your players that want to be evil, or your players that want to be dumb, or your players that are otherwise difficult to motivate with normal adventure, are all wrapped up in the adventure. That you get everyone's character tucked into your campaign nicely. How do you integrate an evil character into your campaign? When you're running, something about how the church needs to get rid of all the evil in the land because the great evil one is using the power of evil to be revived. One idea immediately is to make sure that you don't confuse being evil with doing evil. What they put on their character sheet is not necessarily the actions they're going to take. Don't let the players be too guided by it either. Make sure they know that this can be their character's deep personal internal alignment, and that their character can take actions that don't reflect that. Be that because they are trying to fool the other party members, or because they are keeping those desires at bay for a greater purpose. One of the biggest ways that evil characters are motivated is usually through the bigger bad. Telling them, oh, we'll let you have the big bad's castle once we kill him. Oh, we'll let you have that great artifact once we get rid of the Lich King. If one of your players wants to be evil, I say let them. However, make sure that evil is not in conflict with the party directly. Let me reword that. However, make sure the fact that they are evil is not in conflict with the party directly. Sometimes evil players do evil things that might mess you up, and you might need to be prepared for that. These are most commonly, I steal from them or I kill them. Sometimes, my favorite, I charm them. Now, is this to say that good players won't use these tactics? Of course not. Of course they will.
The king says you cannot pass. He doesn't trust you enough yet. I cast Magic Jar, and I trap the king's soul inside of a pot. Okay. That's a pretty evil way to handle this. No, I'm not evil. I suspect the king of being a doppelganger. And I'm chaotic neutral.
Let's say that one of your players wants to be evil. Ask them straight up. What is being evil going to do for you? What is that gonna... What is that for your character? Why do they need to be evil? If the answer is something that is destructive towards the party, like, oh, I want to kill the other party members or steal from the other party members, then you need to let them know, hey, this is an adventure about a party that solves certain problems. You're wanting to play the role of an adversary, which doesn't really fit into you guys being the party and me being the DM. That's akin to, say, we want to have a race. I'm going to stand here with a stopwatch and a clipboard, and I'm going to get all the players' times to see who's fastest. And this participant says they're going to come join the race, and when they show up with a clipboard and a stopwatch and a whistle. Hey, I'm holding a race for people who want to run. So I came with a clipboard and a stopwatch. I need those for running the race. If you want to run in a race, great. If you want to watch racers, you need to go run your own race. Similarly, if you want to be against the group, you need to go be a DM. Period. I'm not having that in my game. You are not an adversary to the party. I am. You are part of the party. You need to be with them. Does that mean that I'm never going to let a player betray the party? Hell no. Let them fucking kill the party for all I care. But you're not an adversary to the party. You're not constantly trying to foil the party's plans. That's not going to be fun. That's not going to be a fun game for any of us to play. This also similarly goes with Solo Guy and sometimes Goofy Guy. Solo Guy wants to just kind of be cool and do his own thing. I'm sure you've seen this archetype before.
I'm going to romance the bar maiden, and then I'm going to go into the woods and find a pet wolf, and then I'm going to go to the mountains so that I can meet a dragon, so that I can become a dragonborn, so that I can learn Fusrodar, so that I can save all of Skyrim.
Again, we're playing a game about a group of people that solve problems together. If you want to walk off into the woods, go play on a role-playing server or go roleplay on a forum or something. This isn't that game. I think that's part of the issue. I'm often repeating that line. This isn't that game. You don't want to play this game. What I mean by that is that there are a lot of ways to roleplay. There are a lot of role-playing games. Some of them don't involve dice whatsoever. Some of them are a lot more about your own personal character and how you feel about that character. For example, role-playing in a forum is often a large post about what your character does and the particularities of their actions, what they might be thinking and why, things like that. And the other players will be interested in reading all of that before they make their post. Dungeons and Dragons is not really built for that. Again, your game, your way, right? Any of these can change. Any of these rules can be bent. But if you want to have a fun game that looks like a game of Dungeons and Dragons, that is the players on one side of the table and the Dungeon Master on the other. Not 3 of the players over there, and 1 over there, 1 over there, and then me over here. No. That's a different game. You guys don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons. I think you want to play Clue or something. I don't know. Backstories can also get a little bit out of hand. But they give you an interesting opportunity. So long as your backstory person isn't trying to go solo and go rogue and just kind of, well, I'm on a mission to save that princess. Didn't you read my backstory? No, you're not. You're not.
Hope you like it. I wrote it up last night.
You as the Dungeon Master have an opportunity to set up where you want your characters' backstories to end. If you tell everyone, hey, your backstory ends with you taking a ship to this city.
Wake up. Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming.
I don't care why you're taking this ship, but you're on this ship headed to this city. You can at least, from that point on, swoop your characters up into an adventure. Where they were, who they were, whatever, might not even matter anymore. That's how I start one of my favorite campaigns, which is you are headed towards an icy continent to the north. Why you're headed there is your own business. What you know about the place is these few little blurbs. So you're not ever really, no one's ever really picked that they were headed there because the prince is there. What? Where did you hear that? Don't add things to my world, please. You can have your own background, but don't try and put stuff ahead of us. That's my job, really. So then, if they have things in their background that are interesting enough, I have the opportunity to go in and pluck them out and put them into the future of the game. But if they are trying to kind of steer the future of the game with their backstory, that's got to be stopped. Joke characters are rough. If you actually want to integrate someone who wants to play a joke character, I think the first thing we got to remember, okay, is that some people are really stupid and funny. For whatever reason, I want you to imagine yourself being trapped, like you're trapped in a building and it's on fire and there's demons inside and you got to get out. And who's there with you at your side? Mr. Bean. Right? Like, it's possible. There's a world in which you and Mr. Bean are both in a theater that's being attacked by terrorista, and now you got to work together to get out, right? I'm sure it would be very funny, regardless of how serious it ends up being. There would be moments where you would laugh, at least afterward, and be like, damn, that guy's a good comedian. And at least as far as we know, he's not a transphobe. Yet. So, accepting that some people and things in your world are funny. The next kind of rule of thumb I like to use is things are funny, but don't be a comedian. You're allowed to be, a gnome with a peg leg named Big Larry, who has real bad vision and has to wear telescopic lenses and speaks like this. I don't care. Whatever. But as soon as you start distracting from playing a game in order to tell your joke, you're really not that different from the guy with the backstory who's trying to guide my game. And I wouldn't allow that guy to do it, so I can't allow you to do it either. However, that's not to say that your character can't be funny. You can be funny. You can be a funny, weird character with a dumb, stupid backstory. However, I then want to try and challenge the player. How would you take this scenario seriously if you were that person? A lot of what I'm saying kind of presupposes an initial first conversation with the players before you really get the game going. I did mention in the other video about session 0 kind of being where you do this. Sit down with everyone, talk about the kind of game you want to run, talk about the kind of characters they want to be, and bring those two ideas together. If someone is just saying, oh, I want to be this goofy guy with this goofy thing, and he speaks this goofy way, cool. How can we integrate that to the type of story I'm trying to tell? It's okay to ask your players questions like that and be like, hey, what should we do about that then? How should we handle that? And get their opinion. Usually, even by asking them, it makes them realize how difficult that would be to put in a game of D&D and actually manage the way that they're thinking of doing it. So you can kind of get around that. However, sometimes they'll just throw more nonsense at you, and maybe they won't get the point of that question of asking, how do you want to interact with my world? So let's say I'm sitting down with that person and I say, hey, I want to run a game about you guys going on adventures to find ancient ruins. So it's a lot of being out in weird places with bad terrain, camping, traveling, being underground. Does your character fit into that group? Maybe they do. And I honestly feel like you should give people the opportunity to be weird and stupid and silly. But also ask of them to take your game seriously. And if they're not willing to show you the respect of taking your game seriously, You don't need to respect them as human beings. That's something you can bring up. Hey, please, you can have a goofy character, but take the game seriously. There's 3, 4, 5, 6 of us sitting around a table. We're all giving up our time on a weekend to sit here and play. Some of us are preparing additional stuff. Don't disrespect that and try to distract from what we all came here to do. Right? Right. That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. Most people are cool with that. If you say that in session 0 to everyone at once, so it doesn't seem like you're trying to attack anybody, usually players will absorb that. If a player is not listening to you when you say these things or is actively goofing off while you're trying to discuss them, you're kind of getting your answer before the first session. In order to integrate everyone happily, we have to actually discuss getting rid of the elements that you don't want. You have to be comfortable kicking people out. You have to invite more players than you need because you're probably going to have to get rid of 1 or 2 people. This is just the way D&D goes. I don't know if you've ever dated anybody, but that's worse. For the most part, it's very difficult to get 6 to 8 people in a room week by week by week motivated towards the same imaginary goal. People have bad days. People have days that they just aren't feeling it. People have days where they're just way too distracted to actually sit down and be asked to participate in this. And in general, that is fine. I can have one of my players who's regularly in it to play the game with us show up and just kind of be hazy for the day. You know what? That's what they're feeling. But if someone is like that regularly and they're not really interacting with what I'm trying to do with the group, I don't really want them to be a part of the group. And so I'm just going to let them know, hey, I don't think that my campaign is right for you. I'm not going to try and turn it around and make it a them thing versus a me thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be like, hey, I don't think you're right for my campaign. It's just like hey, why don't we break this off? It's not working. I know some other DMs that are running some other games. Here's their numbers. I mean, if they're not matching, they're probably going to feel it before you say this. They're probably going to realize that 3 or 4 people are going, come on, man, can we just get to the next turn?
Yeah. Okay, so, like, I want to, like, climb, like, up on the ceiling, and then, like, when I'm up there, I'm going to be like, I'm the king of the roof! And there's, like, chicks here, right? There's, like, chicks. Okay, so, like, what I do, I want to take my bag of holding, and I open it, like, a little bit, and I put it to my butt, and then I fart into the bag of holding, and then I shut it again real quick. And then I drop down from the ceiling next to one of the girls, and I'm like, behold, I am the king of the ceiling fart man. And then I let her smell it. and then she's like, oh,
God damn.
Disgusting, right?
Can you believe this shit?
Then, like, the maiden, she's like,
Why do we play with this guy? I want to put him in a jar. Shut the fuck up and let's just finish the fucking adventure tonight. You know, some people are just like that. And I think that they will have seen people staring daggers at them once or twice and hopefully get a small read of the room before you actually say to them, I don't think that this campaign is working with you. And they'll understand and be able to walk away okay. If they're not the type of person who can walk away from that okay, again, you don't want them in your game. You don't want a person who you can't kick out without fear of them throwing a tantrum, thinking that each session is all about them. That will kill your game before it can even begin. So get rid of them fast. So once you've gotten rid of that element, then looking back on my initial statement of like, let's integrate evil, joking, backstoried out characters and let them exist in my world. Well, now I guess maybe you can understand a little bit more that this is already, filtering out people who I don't feel like are going to respect my game. So if I've already had these discussions with people and I feel like you are going to respect the time that me and the other players are coming here to put in, and you want to play a hobgoblin named Boblin, well, I mean, I trust you. And I need to trust my players. Because they need to trust me. Because I am lying to them constantly. And if they don't realize that, we can have a good time. But the second they realize that they can't trust me, we're not going to have a good time anymore. So I have to at least pretend. For your jokey character, you're probably going to want to make a session that also has a few jokes in it, or that gives them an opportunity to show off their punchline. You should kind of know that a character who's built to joke around usually wants to be around NPCs, so that that joke can kind of interact with the world in different ways. This is going to be different for every character, so I honestly can't even tell you what to do. I can give you an example. I play a character named Kim Jo.
You so fucking precious when you
Kim Jo's a dwarf, and he's looking to make some sweet moonshine. And in order to do that, he's got to get to the bottom of caves and dungeons where that dank fungi grows. And he'll make you some mushroom tea that you ain't never gonna believe what hit you, boy. So, Kim Jo's a goof. He's a southern dwarf, and he does lots of goofy southern things. He has a rat named Skitter that follows him around, and I play him very goofy when I can, and I make him violently drunk whenever I'm able to, on mushroom tea, which sometimes, depending on the DM, they'll have him hallucinate, stuff like that. Great. I also try and play him anytime the situation gets serious. Kim Jo gets serious. Anytime the situation's not too serious, Kim Jo's goofing around. So for that kind of character, obviously I would want an opportunity for somebody to talk to him about alcohol, let him try some alcohol, give him some new stuff to make alcohol with. Maybe they want to try his. So dealing with evil characters. First of all,
make someone out evil them.
There's someone more evil than they are. Make that person make it personal. The evil person takes something that was giving them power. Taking something of theirs is big, hurts them and reduces their power, shames them, belittles them, makes fun of them. That's usually about it. It's hard to piss off evil people. They usually have their own motivations. To piss off your evil character, you can usually kind of get that evil character riled up and chasing the evil NPC. For that, they can usually join the heroes. Yay, good. We'll make a hero of you yet. Another thing is maybe have them be a double agent. The evil bad guy tells them to join the good guys so that he can learn what they're doing. And then maybe over time, if you have a cool enough player, he'll learn that the good guys are cool and he wants to help them, and he'll double-cross the bad guy. Another example, hey, my partner has a character that she likes to play where they worship a lich. However, they are kind of morally neutral. They just worship an evil god. And because of their worship in this evil god, they've been taught a bunch of weird evil shit that kind of conflicts with regular society. Okay, that's fine. By about session 3, 4, 5, I want to have them interact with something that reveals that their church or their belief or their sect was lying like crazy to them and just existed to push power towards my big bad guy. Cool. Now I've not only given you a reason to hate my bad guy, but have also given you a reason to doubt your original motivations and beliefs and behaviors. So this gives you an opening or an opportunity to want to relearn those things, maybe from the other characters who are good. It's not that every evil character needs to be rehabilitated, it's that every evil character needs to be on a plot arc that leaves them with the player characters continuously. Thinking of plot lines outside of bad guy slowly becomes good that actually leaves the bad guy fighting along with the good guys for a long period of time is really hard. So let's try it. Our player bad guy and the heroes kill the big bad, but the player bad guy was only with them to get revenge on the big bad and is not converting to be good. What do we do next? Oh no, hey evil character, this big bad guy says he's gonna kill your mom if you don't give him 1,000,000 coins. You can't just keep having increasingly worse things come along. That's really lame.
What do you know of meaningless?
You could have something happen to them directly. Of course, someone who they hurt or betrayed or were evil towards comes back around to get them.
Allow me to show you just how much more evolved I have become!
And maybe that person is just as evil as them and doing just as bad of things to get them. After working with the players, they could have a little in with the hero players to be like, hey, I need your help dealing with this person. You can work with me, you can't work with him. There's something. But again, we're now talking about these throwaway little scripts where it's like they help the heroes for a little while until that thing is over and then they stop. Oh, evil player character, you find out about this item, but you can really only get it with the help of a crew of adventurers. Yes, I'll go and get the good players and have them help me. And then as soon as I get it, guess I'll betray them. Evil characters are hard to fit in that way. That if you're not on an arc to slowly become good, we have to continuously rehook you into every plot arc that we create. One of my favorites, honestly, is the spy one, because you can have them be with the players for a very long time without revealing that they're evil until the other bad guy is encountered or dies. Then they can reveal it. And at that point, they can choose whether they want to start to rehabilitate towards good, or at that point, you can kind of hook them with something that's like, I'm evil, but I need your help, or I will help you to get this last thing done. It kind of buys you a lot more time if you insert it before the arc into good. Of course, there's also the evil thief, the evil assassin. They want, to kill or steal from any NPC that doesn't go along with the group's immediate plan. Okay, that's difficult. It's not difficult because it's problematic in and of itself. It's difficult because it's problematic to try and bring about believable repercussions for their actions without destroying your own game. Repercussions are a really good way to ground these kinds of characters into your game and have the players feel the repercussions of their character behaving the way that they are. So, with, say, the assassin character, they're going to kill someone important to the plot pretty quick. What do we want to do? We want to send all the players to prison. We want to hire a band of mercenaries to come fight them. Here's the thing. If this is part of my campaign, I have to immediately ask myself, well, what do I want to do in service of the game that I'm trying to run? Sending the characters to prison takes time away from my plot. Sending a band of mercenaries to fight them on the road because you killed my brother is just another combat where time is ticking down and we're not getting closer to my plot. So this is where wiggling around the details can become really handy. Someone can be related to someone else who the players have yet to meet. another villain that now has an additional reason to hate one of the players in particular above the others. Maybe they pick on just that one instead of picking on everyone. I don't like just throwing combat at my players as a form of punishment. That's usually pretty boring. Limiting their resources for the future is something that does make players think twice, though. So one of the things you can do, for example, is mess with their items, their expendable items, potions, money, things like that. This will make them feel like something bad is happening, but it won't take up any time. You keep the game moving. This also doesn't just arbitrarily give them some negative to things that they're trying to do either. I used to really love taking players' hands and their eyes and things like that, just cutting limbs off in combat, until I realized that I was just basically giving my players stacking negatives that would just get worse and worse as the campaign went on, thus causing them to roll worse and get more limbs severed. If I start weakening my players every time they make a bad decision, they're going to start losing combat, and I don't want that to happen. I want players to win combat with like 1 HP left. So can I get that to be something that's happening because my player did a bad thing? Maybe. I can make a combat way more difficult than it was otherwise. But all that's going to do, of course, is make the length of that combat longer, more. It's going to make that combat length increase. Basically, finding ways to punish players who are doing bad things is an interesting conversation. However, it's not strictly the conversation I'm trying to have at the moment. What I'm actually talking about is punishing characters for doing bad things, like murder and theft. If I just arrest your character or fight your character, I'm punishing all the players for the actions of one character by making it take longer to get through all of tonight's cool content. Unless I do a whole prison break thing as part of the content, but we've all done that before, haven't we? Like, come on, do you really like the part in games where they go, oh, we took all your items, now get out of here using stealth, and none of your items? No, it's not very fun. It really isn't. This is legitimately a harder question. I'm interested in knowing what you think. Put it down in the comments below, not just for engagement, but for my own curiosity. What are ways you would punish a character for doing bad things that wouldn't necessarily punish the player or the other players? So, for example, arresting one of the characters and putting them in prison means that all the other characters are going to try to bust them out of prison. You've just derailed tonight's entire game to being a prison break, where it was going to be about talking to the prince and trying to get him to ally with the party against his father. Well, because your assassin character decided to just kill the father, now they're in prison. And this is a whole different session. This is not to say that no one should be able to have those abilities. Even a paladin could use an invisibility and a spider walk potion to get into someone's room and assassinate them if they were a baddie. And the paladin was on enough, drugs to be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to kill this sleeping person while I'm invisible. Look, there are abilities in the book that players want to use. And it's not our job to stop them from that. It's our job to make it fun to use these abilities. Some of them kind of feel like they're going to break your game, okay? Like, oh, damn, you killed my really important NPC. And he had a name, and he had a whole script that I wrote. And God, what am I going to do now because you just killed 30 minutes of content? That's your fault. My fault. That's my fault anytime I've done it. If you're doing it, it's your fault. You've got to ask yourself right off the bat, what happens if they kill this NPC? What happens if they steal the important item? What happens if they stack boxes to get to the fucking tower window? Like, honestly, go and look at some of the ways people have broken adventure games and immersive sims. Go watch people break Deus Ex for like an hour. People are going to break your game. So you got to make your game unbreakable. The way you do that is by having an infinitely flexible world and just always saying, okay, as the DM, just keep it moving. But before you walk into that situation, anticipate any of the NPCs in your notebook might die tonight. If you reveal something to the players, they might kill it. They might read its mind. What if that happens? What if players sit your NPC down in a zone of truth, all tied up, and torture them to get the main baddies and, to get the main baddie's location, his number of forces, what kind of items and equipment and spells he has? Do you feel like they broke your campaign because they used a zone of truth spell? That's ridiculous. That spell is like bread and butter to D&D. So you can't go crying that players broke your game every time they do something that you didn't anticipate. One of the big things I make sure I try and tell other DMs that are getting started is learn what levels the spells are available. Learn what level they can fly, what level they can zone of truth, what level they can just instantly one-shot a regular person. These are important because I need to know when that could be happening and when I need to prepare for the idea that you might just completely kill the NPC that was supposed to give you this quest, and now I have no idea how to get you along the path that I was going to have you go on tonight. Guess what, Dungeon Masters? You should have had 2 NPCs. You should have had a third NPC who is the son of the second NPC in case he gets killed, who will immediately just pick up where his dad left off and invite the adventurers on the same quest they were going to go on if they didn't do any of this bad stuff. If your quest is contingent on one NPC or one item, you are in trouble. They're gonna screw it up. You have to make it more involved than that. That's why usually solving a problem rather than acquiring a MacGuffin is better. If you don't know what a MacGuffin is, it's anything that is that thing we need. It could have been anything. It could have been an orb, a key, a stone, a rune, a magic word, a person. It doesn't matter what the MacGuffin is. The point is that you need the MacGuffin. And the MacGuffin is never really the point of the story. The thing you need it for is the point. But what if the thing you need it for is more complicated than just bringing a key or bringing a rune? What if it's a whole series of different organizations and groups that we need to get to all come to a meeting and actually have a discussion with one another after they've been fighting for years? Okay, that's not quite a MacGuffin. Now we have to pull a lot of strings. We have to do a lot of things. And if an assassin kills one person, it doesn't really ruin that problem. It could make it a lot more complicated in both a good or a bad way, depending on your view of it and whether you're the player or the DM. You know, I smile when I say these kinds of things like, make it more complicated for the player. And then at the same time, I say, hey, don't just absorb the player's time because that's your time. You want to get through the adventure. So if you're just throwing speed bumps at them, giving enemies more HP and more damage, you're just making it take longer to get there. These are often in conflict. However, if you can find a way to balance them, that's the key. Making players feel like there is a way things could go wrong for them, but at the same time constantly keeping the story moving. That's what it's all about. If you can master that, you're a master dungeon master. And frankly, we can't always do it all the time. Honestly, it can be really difficult to achieve that sometimes. Where It's a night by night kind of thing. So how do I make all of these idiots happy? Well, just make sure that each of my sessions covers more than one type of player. Start by asking everyone, what their intention is with the game, what they're trying to do. Some people will tell you, I really enjoy role-playing. Some people will tell you, I just really enjoy, what I can do with the rules and playing with the book. Some people will tell you, I'm just here to have fun with my friends. These are important answers. You could consider scribbling them down next to each player's name in your notebook. When you're setting up an adventure for your next session, you can then ask yourself, which one of my players is going to enjoy this session and which one's going to be bored? Kind of get to know whether your players like puzzles or not before you run an adventure with a bunch of puzzles. Similarly, your player that really enjoys the book and we're going to say metagaming their choices as far as spells and abilities in order to make a powerful character, they're going to really enjoy combat and using those abilities. And then, of course, people who want to roleplay, well, they want to roleplay. They're going to really enjoy intense conversations with important NPCs. When you're talking about someone like your evil character, the player is usually either joking or really into roleplay. There's not like a very good mechanical reason why you want to be evil. The joking evil character is one of the most difficult to deal with just because it's usually someone who wants to disrespect the whole concept of what you're there to do. They don't want to work with the party. They want to be able to kill NPCs at a whim, stuff like that, which is hard to integrate, but you can. Don't you never tell me that you haven't had a player that acted like that you had to keep around for like 8 sessions because he was friends with the girl that you thought was cute who was in the campaign, so you kept running it just to try and eventually maybe get her to hang out with you outside the campaign, but her brother was there every time, and we all hated him because he always tried to steal the spotlight and he didn't know how to play, but we let him play anyway because she was really cute. But we don't try and get people's numbers when we play D&D anymore because that's wrong, and we didn't understand that there was a power imbalance back in like 2005 to 10. We had no idea what that was. So getting back to actually integrating everybody, you should have a way to make your book-oriented, combat-centric players feel connected to the adventure through just having combat, utilizing their skills, making them roll a lot. That's pretty easy. That's a no-brainer. You should be able to hook your people who like role-playing by giving them opportunities to role-play, making sure that NPCs talk before they fight. You can still have lots of combat, but when it opens with dialogue, you give your bards, your wizards, your sorcerers an opportunity to step forward and try and have a conversation first. They're going to be very happy about that. When you want to integrate evil characters, it's important to make something worse than them and to give them a reason to want to work with the party that is fighting against the greater evil. It's important to remember that they might do things that derail what could be seen as a hero-centric campaign, like murdering people or stealing things. That's okay, though. You just need to make slightly more complicated problems that cannot be solved with just a murder or a theft. You can integrate people who want a joking character, who just want to play a big punchline, by giving them an opportunity to do that. Remember, the more you restrict that, the more they're going to try and do it. If you give them time to do it and then go, ha 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 ha, okay, now let's get serious, because combat is starting. They're going to have a much easier time getting into combat. And then next time you give them that opportunity, they're going to be really excited about it and be like, yay, I get another opportunity to be a goofball and make everybody laugh. Aside from that, the other one is people with crazy background stories. I already said, try and not let their background story grow to in front of your campaign. You can let them have as long of a background as they want, but when it gets to the day at which your heroes all came together, that background pretty much needs to be done. Maybe there's someone who killed their brother. Ooh, spooky smoke coming in from the side. Maybe there's someone who, killed their brother, or maybe there's someone who wronged them in the past that they're looking for. However, all of the active stuff that they're trying to do needs to be resolved. Anything going on in their life needs to be a passive thing, something that could happen one day, but is not what is actively motivating their characters. One of the biggest intros that I love to games is Bethesda, Skyrim, Morrowind, Oblivion. You get out of prison. You could have been sent there wrongfully. You could be a murderer. You could be a thief. You could have gone there on tax evasion. That is entirely up to you. No background is ever given to you, and it does not matter. Try and keep your players in that zone. They are allowed any background they want before they have gotten off that boat. Once they got off that boat, they are the Neverine, and that is that. Once they get off that boat, their background is done. Now we are entering into your story, and they should be very happy if they get to see cameos of stuff from their background show up in the future of your story. But that's a matter of player expectation, and you should be able to manage that by just having a short conversation with them before the game. Same thing with your evil players. If you have a conversation with them before the game and you remind them you're allowed to be evil, but you're not allowed to be the party's adversary, because that's my job, then they should be able to find ways where they can be evil while still helping the party along. One of the last things I want to get at is that as a dungeon master, when you are dealing with these kinds of players, I don't actually like to sit someone down and say, hey, you're killing too many NPCs. Hey, you're spending too much time goofing around and making jokes. I like to try to handle it through gameplay. What that means is changing the way I run my next session to either allow time for them to joke around for the first hour of the game, or throw more disposable targets towards a character so that they can get that out of their system where they want to kill NPCs, or scare them by making the law come because of the NPCs they've killed. I want to handle problem players through the mechanics of the game world itself, rather than having to sit down with them and say, hey, I don't like the way you're playing. I'm the dungeon master. I have the tools of the infinite to throw at these people. I honestly can get them to jump through quite a lot of hoops. You can get them to do quite a few tricks just through the way that you run your session. So you shouldn't necessarily need to sit someone down as a player and make them feel like they've made the wrong choices as a player. You should be able to show them the consequences that that kind of play style has in your world. And if you can't, then it's time to sit them down. And it's okay if you need to. Like I said earlier, one of the most important things to making sure that you can get these kinds of players to integrate into your campaign as their characters and be happy is by getting rid of people who are not going to respect your time, your energy, the game that you've put together. They're not going to respect the fact that they are a group of players trying to overcome a challenge together. Challenges that you as the dungeon master are creating. They are not supposed to be, as players, making challenges for one another. If that's what they're interested in, there are plenty of other role-playing games which facilitate player versus player, or focusing on yourself. If you just want to be solo and have a huge backstory, there are plenty of role-playing games happening in forums where people will be very, very, very interested in your backstory. However, Dungeons & Dragons is not the game for that.